Welcome to Roll for Crit. You're here for a special live edition of the Meeple Gallery, our viewer comments segment. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and bear with us as usual, as always. We're experimenting with new technology, new streaming setups, new microphones.
We even switched sides.
Yes.
This is crazy.
We have switched sides. I also got to make sure I'm centered. You know, there's a lot of things to take into account right now, but we're doing it for you right here. If anything sounds a little off, you know, we're figuring it out as we go. But I think it should be fine. We're going to answer a lot of questions from the past month about a variety of subjects. And if you're in the chat right now, as I know, Ajan and Nishant are. Hi to you, fellows. Then ask us some questions that you have too. Feel free to jump in. I'm Jonathan, by the way.
And I am Will, as always.
But you probably know that if you're watching this. Okay, you ready for a lot of viewer comments?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I was asking you. All right, great.
Sorry. I was like, I guess you're going to the audience.
I can't hear you. Okay, so let's start off with the Spiel des Jahres nominees that were announced. I think it's usually around July we find out the winners, but we know the nominees. We ran through them, but if you missed out, it's a few little games. There's My City. I gotta remember Nova Luna, and what's the third Spiel? Oh, Pictures. Whereas the Kenner Spiel was Cartographers, King's Dilemma, and The Crew.
That's correct.
People had thoughts about them. For instance, Rico Melcher said, played all of this year's nominees and most of the recommended games. So far, only with two groups of gamers, so yet to see how well the nominees work to bring new folks into the hobby, but I have a good vibe so far. It's a shame that The Crew ended up as the far less prestigious Kenner. That game got that caravan vibe nailed down. Played it with gamers and non-gamers, clocked over 100 plays since Spiel 19. It gets difficult, but at the start it's a simple trick-taking game. Don't know how they can recommend The Fox in the Forest as a Spiel des Jahres, but not The Crew. And this is going to probably come up in a few other comments, but yes, this is one of the things. We definitely talked about the fact that maybe some things belonged in different categories than others. We weren't sure.
I mean, I am not one of the judges, and I think we went to a panel once, but it's not like we've had a great in-depth discussion with them. Maybe we can get one of them on the show to interview. But yeah, I just felt like The Crew was more at home at a Spiel to me. Like it seemed, as you said, it seemed perfect to actually bring new gamers in. Yeah. It does get difficult, but it's not like dropping you in like many of the other more hardcore games we may consider Kenner Spiels. The way the missions are structured seem fantastic for new players to be like, now, do this, now use this token, now use this. So to me, it just seemed like a perfect fit there.
Yeah, well, Kevy B has some thoughts. You know Kevy B, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says, basically the categories are pretty easy and very easy. They aren't interested in heavyweight. It's middleweight and lightweight, but both are for more casual gamers. I'm down with The Crew being in Kenner Spiel. A lot of people just don't understand trick-taking games unless they have a long history with them. My nephew, who can throw down on Seven Wonders, has no clue how to deal with the machinations of trick-taking. Meanwhile, My City is legacy in name only. You're not making pandemic-like decisions that will affect future gameplay. If you win, you get an item. If you lose, you get a better item. It's legacy in that you get stickers. But I've never considered trick-taking maybe is a thing that you either understand or you don't. To me, it seems pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if we take a look at like early games, like most games using the classic 52 deck of cards or rummy, you know, I feel like trick taking is like one of the earliest mechanics we've used.
Right. Yeah. It's a very classic kind of thing.
Even deck building, which you and I would consider on the basic, much simpler to understand, at least once you've played it a lot. And if it doesn't have anything else going for it, I think that deck building would be much harder to teach. Even drafting, I'm surprised, like the Seven Wonders, maybe it's just because if you play that enough. Yeah, I still have troubles drafting something like Magic.
Right.
Compared to trick taking, I feel like I can, most of my family at least. It could be just depending who you are and what you played beforehand, but
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'd be interested to hear if more people have like what their levels of trick taking are. It's not a thing I feel like we see too much of these days in the modern board game. You see it crop up here and there, but it's not like you said in classic card games. It seems like such a big thing. Going on about My City, which is this light legacy game from Reiner Knizia. Super Mega Vega said, I was ready to buy My City, but the more I read about it, it seems more of a vanilla legacy game that doesn't sound as fun as I originally thought. I got King's Dilemma at Gen Con last year, but still haven't opened it. Recommend opening it when you get the chance.
Oh, absolutely.
We're fans of that. And John A. said, My City sounds like they had a full game and then decided to remove rules to make it a legacy game. I.e., you start with something so simple, they even say you can skip the first how many games before it gets interesting. I'm going to say something potentially controversial right now. I think John A. just described 90% of legacy games. I think that's a lot of them go, and why I don't like most of them is because it feels like they just are piecemealing out the rules slowly rather than actually doing something with the legacy format.
I mean, in particular, if we take a look at the ones like Pandemic or Aeon's End, which they weren't initially legacy games, that they had their, I guess, core start as a regular game and then brought over. In Pandemic, which we had played a lot, we're just like, all right, okay, it's this mechanic we remember from before. When Aeon's End, since we never played any before, like, oh, this is new. So it's an interesting take if you've played that game beforehand, like, does that make it better? Because, like, we finished Aeon's End and it didn't feel weird to us. Like, oh, now we have charges. Like, that's new and interesting.
Yeah.
But if you've played Aeon's End before, you're like, okay, now we have charges. When are we just getting this mechanic or something?
Yeah, I will say, and yeah, not having played the original Aeon's End, it does seem to me that while there's definitely some of that rule stuff, you also are getting bosses that I think are unique, and
right?
Cards that are unique.
Like, I'm not trying to.
No, I know you're not.
More general how
like
because it was just an interesting view how we haven't played Aeon's End to see those rules being added versus Pandemic, which we have played plenty of.
For sure, and I'm Betrayal Legacy too. I think along those same lines. Nishant Kumar, I see in the chat, says drawing parallels from Oscars, where usually critically acclaimed heavier movies win the best movie. However, in case of games, somehow mass appeal seems to be a major factor. It is funny, isn't it, how it's the opposite? The lightest movies, like a comedy, will never win Best Picture.
The way I view it is that the people who are doing the Oscars rating, at least now, I don't know, recent changes or in past, were more like they're much older and they're more like, this is an art, damn it. There's a bit of like, and that's the problem. We need the pendulum to be sort of in the middle. When board games, and they even sort of admit it, which I think is understandable, it's like, we're looking for a game for the German marketplace that people can play.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. I think part of the problem is when you only have 3 awards, one is for literally children. And when we say children, we mean like very young. And then you only have 2 other ones. A lot gets crowded out.
I think with board games too, that's it's like we really want you to play these, please. like we're trying. This isn't just an award for best board game. This is an award of like, we want people to know board games exist. And if we nominate the new LCG this year, normal people aren't going to play that.
Right. If a movie, when you say like, yeah, I like watching movies, people don't go like, oh, you like SpongeBob. They don't have the monopoly problem we do, I think.
Right.
Yet.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the issues at hand of conventions this year. Since our last Meeple Gallery, both Gen Con and Essen have been canceled. And we talked a lot about the sad parts about that, as well as the possibility for potential for something nice to come out of the digital versions of these events.
Oh, yeah.
And I really like this post from Killer of Eden, who said, I've never attended a large convention and have only attended one local convention. I love the idea of going to conventions to meet people, demo games, learn about new announcements, attend panels. The difficulty for me is that I have PTSD, and large crowds, especially of unknown people, are not something I can be around. Because of this, it leaves me feeling like I'm on the outside looking in. I'm excited at the thought of digital conventions and presentations, as it's something that I can participate in without the anxiety of a possible triggering event. I truly hope that a lot of thoughtful planning goes into these events and they become part of the ongoing experience in future years. He also said there are plenty of folks that would love to attend conventions but are unable to due to work, family, cost, or a number of other reasons. It'd be great if we could find a way to make conventions something that people can travel to and others can attend while at home for inclusivity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like how, since we've all been in quarantine, like you're saying, oh, I'll maybe learn the guitar someday in the future. Well, guess what? You're locked inside. Now's the time to test it out. For the conventions, it's like, maybe we'll try something online. It's something. Well, guess what? It's canceled. Now's the time to solve it.
Right.
Like, it's just, don't ignore it. We have the opportunity. Take it.
Yeah. Killer of Eden also said that he loves the idea that I think you had of being able to see how many other gamers are in your area. Like sort of like if through Discord or something, like kind of a meetup, but virtually.
Right. Because, and continuing off that, like what if the first day you see that, let's say, for example, around where you are, Jonathan, only because it's the only game store I know of, I can think off the top of my head right now, the only game in town. And they're like, wow, there's a lot of people. What if we do on Saturday, we're going to put a stream down and we invite people to come play board games for the Gen Con and stuff. Mm-hmm. That way game stores become hotspots, which then, brings revenue to the local game stores. It just, once again, it's more winners. It just seems like so many people can come out of this so much better.
I agree. Fully behind you. I see Tuckleberry Finn in the chat has a great name. Has a question about Wingspan. We will get to Wingspan in a few minutes, so I'll hold on to that one. Put a pin in that for now.
We see you.
You're seen. But back to more convention stuff. Our Family Plays Games commented, said Board Game Geek opened a geek game store and let publishers who were on their online con this week, this was 3 weeks ago, sell their games. That might be the way to help publishers. This was something we were trying to figure out, is how might be a good way to promote some of these smaller publishers who don't have the exposure of a booth anymore. And yeah, I would love to see Board Game Geek do that again with Gen Con, or Gen Con do it themselves. Well, I don't know. For some reason, I have less faith in their online organization skills, just because they haven't done it before, I guess. So it's like untested waters, but...
Right. Board Game Geek actually runs a website.
Right. Yeah, and they have the infrastructure in place for a store. But yeah, that would be a great thing to see. Sonic Anim said, it's great that the board game conventions are looking into digital events as an alternative. Hopefully they'll take inspiration from what is going on with video games. For example, Gamescom Digital and Summer Game Fest to announce titles and maybe have playable demos online perhaps. Understandably, companies need a physical presence to show off a board game, but for bigger companies, by announcing digitally, they could find they're saving money in the long run by taking this controlled messaging route. This is something I thought about too. I've particularly, we've seen first Nintendo did it, Sony has been following suit, and now without E3 this year, probably all the major video game companies are doing their announcements for games digitally. They just, and of course it's a lot easier for video games. As he said, it's different for board games. You want to be able to see them in person. But I think it's a pretty great thing to have, and people, there's a lot of announcements that go out for board games, but if they actually did sort of shows or like special presentations, the way a Nintendo Direct comes out, if we got the Pandasaurus Direct or whatever it is to hear about their new game announcements, I think that's a cool idea.
Once again, I think this is the time that board games need to take advantage of the weirdness of this year. I was going to say of the good. It's not really good. It's weird.
Yes.
But I think we can come up with some really amazing things. And think about it, too, because a lot more people are on digital spaces. They might see that more, which in turn might bring in new players.
Yeah, Yes, there's a silver lining, definitely. Brian Andrews also had some words, some advice for us. He said,
I assume most of the comments have words for us.
well, a couple of them are numbers. I didn't include those. He said, I'm glad they have made these announcements as there would be a lot of anxiety about trying to make travel plans besides the convention and the risks of not being able to get a refund. As a Londoner, I would be very interested in a digital Gen Con or Essen. For channels like yours, could smaller companies reach out and have a dedicated digital demo with you, maybe sending you an advanced copy or prototype so that you could have the game in front of you and they could talk you through it? Perhaps they could work with Tabletop, I assume he means Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, to set up virtual spaces for demos. And yes, donations via digital cons for other businesses impacted by the conventions would be good. I will say these are things we are thinking about. That's all I will say. There are definitely things we are thinking about, and hopefully we're able to have some kind of cool coverage in some way, different from what we normally would have for Gen Con, but something. So I think those are all good suggestions to think about. That's all I'll say.
Like I said, things are weird. We're all trying to learn some new stuff.
We're all trying to learn some very new stuff. Let's go to Wingspan now.
All right.
Wingspan had a big set of wins last month in terms of board games. Wasn't up for the Spiel this year, but last year it was nominated, and that was Tuckleberry Finn's question. We'll kick it off. Asked, was Wingspan worthy of the Kenner Spiel last year without its first expansion taken into account? Well, we've discussed the merits of Wingspan a little bit in our video about it winning everything this year.
I like Scott Armstrong in the chat put Wingspan.
Yeah, that's a good nickname for it. I'll also jump to the Zilla left a comment on our video, with a list of Board Game Geek awards that Wingspan won, which he includes as Best Light Game, Best Heavy Game, Best World War II Game, Best Sports Game, Best Miniatures War Game, Best Collectible Card Game, Best R&B Album by a duo or group, Jefferson High School Homecoming King, and Major League Baseball MVP. All for Wingspan. And yeah, we've talked about it, but yeah, a lot of people I think are starting to feel like, does Wingspan deserve all these awards? And I do think part of it is just people who are in the community already are seeing it so much, and probably more casual players who enjoy Wingspan and aren't like checking Board Game Geek every day aren't feeling that fatigue the same way. And I think we both agree, it's a little bit much in some cases, but in general, it's I think it's not undeserving of the majority of these awards.
I mean, I'm in the camp of sometimes I watch the Oscars and be like, if that movie's Best Picture, why didn't it take half the other awards?
Right.
And part of that is, and rightfully so, sure, if something wins Best Picture, but this movie, for example, those costumes were just phenomenal. Just trying to think of more of a weirder Oscar. Besides just Best Actor or Actress. And that makes sense for these categories. And I think that's where some of the problems, people are like, should Wingspan been in that category? Right. I don't think it's not that people are angry. It's a good game. And I think that's where all the jokes come from it winning Best Album or something. It's why was it there to begin with? And then, I mean, we talked about before of does it make sense for it to be here or not? Some of them are definitely a bit more gray, how you define medium, heavy, card, things like that. But I still think it is a great game. It's one of those things where, especially as the hobby grows, people will tend to just vote for if they know the game. They won't even be like, does it work there? So it's something. These are growing pains we're going to have to learn to adjust to.
Well, you're not alone. Ilya Ushakov said, I genuinely think Wingspan deserved it. Playing a lot of those other games, it makes me happy to see it get so much love. I do wish Marvel Champions got some love, though. Sorry, Marvel Champions. And Jerry Mudd echoed a lot of the same thoughts you said by echoing also Elizabeth Hargrave, the designer of Wingspan, said the issue, like Elizabeth mentioned, is the category definitions. Any game has strategy, but strategy as a category seems to lean more towards a heavier game. A game should not be in both family and strategy categories. It diminishes the meaning of both. Also, a card game to me is a game with just cards and some tokens as counters. Wingspan's mechanic is card-driven, definitely, but good lord, it has boards, tokens, dice, eggs, all that are necessary to play. How is that considered a card game? This I thought was interesting. Where do you draw the line of how far does it have to go before it's no longer a card game and it's now a board
Well,
game?
like, that's the problem. Matt. Like initially, especially before all this Wingspan stuff, I'm sure if you were to ask me like, what is a card game? I'd be like, well, Magic the Gathering, where cards are the majority component. Like I can see the argument for Wingspan. Like, yeah, cards are like still the centerpiece, so to speak. I mean, yes, the tower sticks up and everything's pretty because it's a Stonemaier game. But, you are mostly thinking about cards.
I think those dice might be for me, like the sticking point. Like the fact
that's the thing. It's like, I'm still like, I don't feel it should be there. Like, I don't consider Mage Knight a card game, even though it has deck building. Like, it's...
Now, here's the question. What about taking an LCG, for example? I think we would both agree that's a card game. Let's just say...
well, you know what? First of all, if it has card game in the name,
right.
Living card game,
right.
I think you probably are in the card game section.
But what if, say, Arkham Horror, what if, say, there's playmats for that game? What if it came with a board with spaces for your locations to go on? What if those locations... I don't know,
No, I think that's
that
a good
board
question,
game?
and my argument to that would be, how necessary is it? Like a playmat you don't need. I have a playmat for Arkham Horror that has like a slot for the deck, slot for that. You can buy them for most of the LCGs. And honestly, I think they're great. You probably should. It feels really nice to have. But when you take a look at like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic's probably not as good a one. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, there are 5 slots for both creatures and Magic and traps last I played. God knows what's changed since then. Most of the decks I think come with a paper playmat. You don't need that. I don't think once you've learned the game, let's say, like you probably don't need the board for Wingspan, technically, if you memorize it. But there's a lot of symbology on there. It's not like, I think even like regular Wingspan players would probably be like, hold on, let me just see what that space gives me now.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to go in Yu-Gi-Oh! Be like, all right, where do my creatures go now? No, there's 5 creatures you can have. I think it's 5. It's been a while since I've seen Beaver Warrior.
Okay, so this is a good measure. How necessary are certain components? That makes sense for that regard.
Well, and then Michael Joyce in the chat asked about like Tainted Grail and Gloomhaven, in which I would respond like, once again, for Gloomhaven, you need the board. It has this deck. Yeah. But because there's so many other opponents, I would consider it essential.
Gloomhaven is definitely a board game in my opinion.
Tainted Grail is interesting.
I think
because it's on the 7th continent.
Yeah, I was going to say 7th continent.
You make a board, but it's made of cards.
Right. It really is a board game. It's just that the board is made of cards.
I think I would say Tainted Grail.
But then what does board game mean?
But there's this gray area where we have to draw a line. And if we had to choose, I think I would probably put Tainted Grail and 7th Continent. They just make the card game. There is an argument because you need a book.
I think an argument could be made for me that maybe we just forget it. The distinction is arbitrary, maybe. We just, from now on, just say there's a best board game. I don't care if it has cards. I don't care if there's tiles or dice. They're all board games now.
That's why I think it should be changed to tabletop.
Tabletop game, right. I just think board game is catchier, even though it makes less sense. I think it'll be easier to get people to say it. Anyway, very interesting discussion. Let's keep going. Another new game was announced last month, and that is Pandemic Hot Zone, which is the smaller version of Pandemic. It's actually a whole series they announced, but the first one's going to take place in North America, right. And people were maybe less than impressed in some instances. Hoser40K said, meh, I already own 4 versions of the game plus Legacy 1 and 2, which I think a lot of people own a lot of Pandemic games right now. Kevy B, even more emphatic, said, boo! After the success of those simplified Ticket to Rides, series they've been doing lately. Z-Man clearly discovered the next way to get a Pandemic game out every year. The problem is Ticket to Ride is a game that can go over an hour, so a quicker version makes sense. Pandemic doesn't take nearly that long, unless your group is horrifyingly AP prone. I don't think a 45-minute game needs a more approachable version, especially when Pandemic games already come with easy modes. It's called 4 Epidemics instead of 5.
No, that makes sense also because competitive versus cooperative. Things are a lot more stressful when it's competitive. I mean, even in Ticket to Ride, which I would not say is a very cutthroat game, unless you're playing with cutthroat people.
It is the way I play.
And, so it makes sense because if you take a competitive game, make it shorter, it's going to feel a lot less worse should you lose for whatever reason. With Pandemic, the only time you really feel bad is like, really? 2 epidemics in a row? It's not I don't think the time span is going to change that.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, Professor ABR said...
I also think my mic is dropping, so give me a second. Go ahead.
Oh, you mean literally physically dropping?
I think it physically went down a little bit.
That's like we said, folks.
Tighten this up.
We're experimenting. Professor ABR said, I already own Pandemic, Pandemic Cthulhu, and Pandemic Iberia, but I am tempted to get this one too, because my family likes shorter games, and it will be easier to play with just 2 players and solo. However, I fear it might be too short. I like Ticket to Ride London, but it is too short, for example. So maybe there's a market for this, or maybe not. He's a little on the fence.
Let me know if I do sound way too weird, but
you sound good.
I will say another thing that is nice about it. Not that I don't think this might be a good thing, especially in your eyes, Jonathan. But there are so many pandemics, it's almost like a collectible game now. So like these new versions, like a new thing to collect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous, but that is what it has become for some people. I think is like I want the series of Pandemic, which hey, that's fun.
We're putting on our tinfoil hats. This could be just a way to distract us and keep us, Pandemic excited until they actually get Legacy 3 out and running.
Probably. Yeah, keep that hat on. Matt H. Louder also said, unpopular opinion, but this may actually not only replace my core box Pandemic, but also be one of the new gateways. So he thinks this is going to overtake it. He thinks this could be...
That could be very possible. I think part of the reason, though, for you and I in particular, as he said, gateway game, so we're like, we have it, we've played it a lot, so it's not one we're not as attractive to. I think could be part of the issue.
Yeah, I'm not...
It'd definitely be serious to put this in front of people who are maybe still in that gateway area.
Right. No part of me heard an easier Pandemic? Oh boy. Like I doesn't realize. I don't think it's really for us necessarily. Here's a game that we reviewed. It's called Gates of Delirium. You remember it?
I think I do.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. You might have to go to Insane Side for me to remember.
This is a Lovecraftian area control game. It's got some other stuff going on in it. We liked it. Adam Green said, I picked this up after seeing it at PAX Unplugged last year. Only got to play a couple times so far, but I love that the rules are relatively simple, so it can be taught at game night pretty quickly, but there's still a ton of decision making to be done. My main negative is having to shuffle the gate cards. They're such an awkward size and not quite square, but don't let that deter you. What do you think about weird card shapes?
They're annoying, but I understand if they serve a purpose. Like here, they're meant so you can make that gate symbol,
right.
Which is really cute.
Is it worth it, though?
Is it worth it? That's up to you, really. I don't think that...
It depends on your table space and your tolerance for...
Yeah, no, I mean, when we were practicing, because, we want to make sure we get enough games under our belt to review it. You would hope we would, right? That when we were playing, it's just like, all right, how do I get everything on camera for Jonathan?
Right, because we're playing remotely.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was even a bigger concern. So yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, then there's the whole issue of sleeves, but we won't get into that. Now Ross Konopaski had a very interesting thing. You don't have... I should have told you to get Gates of Delirium. It's not nearby, is it?
No, it is not, unfortunately.
It's fine.
Sorry.
But he said, hey guys, there's a hidden expansion for this game. And he posted a link to an Instagram post Renegade made months ago that says, "Have you found the hidden expansion in Gates of Delirium yet?" Ross said, "Took me a bit, but I found it." So sounds like there's a secret expansion in that game box that we need to look for.
That is very interesting. You know what? Why don't I go grab it while you read the next comment?
All right, let's do it. This is going to be real exciting. Okay. All right. This is stuff is live, people. Things are happening. Very exciting. In the meantime, we will move on to some more comments about other things. Let's talk about He-Man. The Masters of the Universe, to be specific. Come On Games announced that they will have the rights and will be launching on Kickstarter a new game based on the He-Man property. And this is a coincidence. I didn't mean to have these back to back, but we got another comment here from Ross, the same guy, so this is perfect. He said, "If I wasn't feeling old before this video, I am now. He-Man and G.I. Joe were the biggest thing ever when I was a kid. I'm not all that excited about this game. We're too old for it, and you guys," meaning myself and Will, "are too young for it. Curious to see how it goes." Ross is referring to the fact that during that video we mentioned that we had not really watched He-Man at any time growing up. It was before our time. It was before our time. I Will said he watched it a little bit. Well, also, I mean, he's a big Transformers. It's not. There are some things that carried over, I think, into the '90s when we were of our formative youthful years, but that was not one of them for me, at least. And the Ernie Fours said, "I used to watch He-Man and She-Ra back in the '80s. Rewatching it now is really hard, but I was a fan back when I was a kid. The new She-Ra on Netflix show is amazing. I just had to get used to the artwork, which I like now. It reminds me of Bargain Quest's art. It uses a lot of purples. If you like Avatar: The Last Airbender, She-Ra has the same quirkiness, continuing story, and world-ending events." And yeah, that is because we talked about She-Ra and the possibility of maybe Come On would use the assets from that new version of She-Ra in He-Man potentially. I'm not sure, but as Will said, he heard great things, and we're hearing that backed up in our comments section that She-Ra is one to watch. I think maybe it's on Netflix. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, but Ernie Force said on Netflix, so I think that's right. Hey, you're back!
I'm back, not with the game. I could not find it for the life of me. I think it's been pulled through the portals.
After all that, it's so anticlimactic.
I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll find it as soon as we stop streaming.
That's okay. It's fine. What you missed was we were talking about the new Come On He-Man game. The fact that people watching are older than we are. We didn't go up with it, but we got further recommendations to watch She-Ra on Netflix and said that's a good show. Yeah. She-Ra. I mean, that was just funny, so I'm happy with it. It was worth it. Another thing that was announced that we talked about that we haven't watched is Altered Carbon, the role-playing game from Renegade Games Studios. We talked about it a bunch as being related to I think it's a Netflix series. At least it's on Netflix.
Altered Carbon? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Netflix series.
That we hadn't seen. Mm-hmm. And the Ernie Fours, again commenting, pointed out Altered Carbon is a book. The TV show is loosely based off of it. So yeah, I do think the role-playing game is not licensed from the TV show. It is using the book stuff.
Interesting. I wonder how different the two are.
Yeah, he said loosely based, so according to him, it sounds like fairly different. And a bunch of people, including Danny P. and Tim Chan, said we should watch Altered Carbon. It's really good. So another show recommended for us to find time to watch.
We'll put it on the list.
Right. Then Jake Lowe said, "I always feel that any IP can be made into a role-playing game. Add some framework to the IP and you get a role-playing game." And I like this because for a long time, I have always felt there are certain genres that I love anytime something is made into a musical. I love anytime, this is much less frequent, but anytime something is made into a point-and-click adventure game, like Indiana Jones back in the day or some other examples. I think that a lot of narrative-driven things in my opinion, work really well in these other genres and can be really fun when you translate them. And I think, in the same vein, that I agree with this. What do you think about it? Anything should be an RPG, and anything leap into your mind that I know
I
there's
don't
one
know
we've talked about lately, but
anything in general, just because I'm not going to try to think of a bad example, but I feel like for something to be like a good story, like movie, TV show, book, a lot of times that means they usually have a good world. And a good world is sort of very core to the RPG. I guess what would make a great RPG story.
yeah.
And I mean, how many times, and maybe this is the one you're saying, like, be like, man, I'd love to be in the world of Avatar,
Yeah.
be a bender or something.
Right. You're talking about blue cat people, right?
Yeah. When I say bender, I mean, that's what they call the people who controlled animals, right?
Yeah, because they bend their limbs. Whatever. Yeah, another. Because usually you think of the obvious thing is like your Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, things like you said that have large worlds and obvious parallels of classes and stuff like that. But nowadays too, we see so many of these indie RPGs on Kickstarter, and I bet there's even like smaller properties, like movies that or like Reservoir Dogs to Fiasco, for example.
I think the term world doesn't have to be like the entire world. Like I know you and I are big fans of. I forget you know the terms because you're better with this stuff with movies, but like when it's in one set location.
Yeah.
Like what was
For TV they call them bottle episodes, but
Tarantino movie when they're in the cabin.
Oh, right, the Hateful Eight, or like a closed room mystery.
Right, I'd say their world, the cabin, and they explain the characters and how they all relate, and I think that would still count. So those indie RPGs would do something interesting, that similar style, like you have to like write. I think didn't you back when you write letters to each other or something?
Yes, called Reunification. That was an indie one that we haven't tried yet, but yeah, you write letters to each other. So that's interesting. I see Scott Armstrong said Final Fantasy RPG. Kind of insane that they haven't made one of those yet. I mean,
look, Square Enix is really weird.
But we have to mention, and I wish I could remember the name of it off the top of my head. If I can't, I have to look it up if you can't. But we did a Kickstarter preview and got to play a little of an RPG that is heavily inspired by Final Fantasy. It's an indie RPG, and it was pretty fun. And I think it did a good job capturing the essence of it.
Totally blanking as well.
I know.
Unfortunately,
I know. I will try to figure it out.
I miss my character from that. I mean, I think he died, but maybe I'll resurrect him.
It was fun. It was fun. And yes, Last Airbender was the one that I was thinking of. I'm determined. I found it. It was called Era Lost Legend.
Excellent.
Look up Era Lost Legend if you want that.
All right. We said Avatar as like our obvious pick. Can you try to think of a weird pick you'd want to see as an RPG? Something maybe neither of us would expect the other to say.
A weird pick. Oh.
Yeah, a weird property.
Well, I mean, one just came. Okay, I'll go with a weird one. I'm looking at my DVD shelf.
I have one that you'd pick, but I think it'd be an interesting one.
How about something like a sitcom, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or Community, or Cheers, like something where I'm the love interest as like your class, or I'm the comic relief.
I like that a lot. I think that's a solid idea. I played a bit more safe with a horror idea. Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, and that's perfect for one shots.
Exactly, and there actually would be a thing of like there has to be like a random table and see what monster people, and like the DM could have his own little thing where he puts bets on what monsters are going to choose. They'll never get mermaid, but they can hope.
Yeah. These are good. Write these down. We're going to make some money off of this. Okay. I'm emailing Fox about the Always Sunny RPG right now.
No,
Stranger Things have happened. I do have the Wet Hot American Summer role-playing game.
You're right. Stranger Things was an RPG.
That too. All right. Let's move on to a game that we reviewed that's been out for a while, but we talked about it and its newest expansion, Disney Villainous.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, big fans of this game, it turns out. Falcon Ash K said, Disney is my drug. I've played this a few times, and it was a great experience. Scar and Evil Queen are my favorite villains, shadowed by the amazing Maleficent. It's all about the green fire, baby, he says. His baby, not
Oh
mine.
man, of course, the two that we had from the two expansions we haven't played.
Right. Although in other expansions, he says they are worth getting. I was able to fit only one in the base box. The other two fit in the other expansion box. This is a must-have for light and heavy gamers, and most of all, Disney fans.
I definitely agree with that. Like, it just seems perfect if you're into Disney. It's just like, look, we have a game that isn't just poorly made. It's weird. It's different. But you're going to have fun. It's going to be like, I know this stuff if you're a fan.
Taylor Manning said, this game is great. My advice to every new player, here's some tip, just some tip, is to use the card. If you don't want to use the cards in your hands within 2 turns, then just use the discard action as much as possible to get the cards you need. Pretty good advice. I'd say that's good advice because a lot of the times you're going to be wanting to find stuff in your deck. So if you're not using it,
yeah, and it's just something. It's could be hard to get used to be like, I don't want to discard. I might use it. You know, it's something that
don't hoard. Stepping back briefly, I got to read this. Ajan in the chat said one of the Studio Ghibli movies as an RPG.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Fantastic. I feel like maybe I'm imagining it, but maybe there was an indie RPG that was meant. I feel like there's probably several that are inspired by Ghibli movies. But
yeah, let's do Graveyard of the Fireflies.
All right, now.
Is that technically them or not?
No, that is. I'm pretty sure that's a Ghibli movie. It's not Miyazaki, but it is.
That's what it is. I know it's like a little bit.
I still haven't seen it. Anyway,
but yeah, I mean, any of the big one. I mean, any of them would be fun, but in particular, like Princess Mononoke, like having to deal with some of the creatures. Honestly, some of those should be brought in as D&D monsters. They're terrifying. The story itself is great.
Hey, to tie things back together, Disney puts out the Ghibli movies in the U.S. Should we see some Ghibli enemies in Disney Villainous?
Who would be the villain?
No Face. Oh, I was thinking of
You're thinking Spirited Away.
That was. I mean, I just went to one. Yeah.
Well, that would be wouldn't it be the
Baba Yaga, whatever her name is.
Yeah, because I feel like No Face would be one of her allies, kind of.
Right. I mean, either like the lead wolf, or maybe even like the trees, the forest god, or something could be
without its head.
I mean, there's.
I was thinking maybe the lady who runs the town.
Maybe
that one is up for debate.
There's shades of gray, is the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why it's such a great movie.
But yeah, there's some good possibilities there.
No, I mean, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, and then we'll get back into Disney Villainous proper. Calvin Brooks loves the game, said, my only complaint is that I think some of the characters are not balanced. We said the same thing. At least not at 2 players, which I have played at. I have literally played at least 50 plus times against the same opponent. I know some will say it is balanced, but it doesn't seem so to me. The game is very thematic. We have house ruled it, so Prince John has to get 25 power instead of 5. Instead of 20, it's 5 more.
I was like, wait, what?
Than is normal. And for Ursula, we house ruled it, so there is a play card ability at the castle. That space is part of the bottom actions and cannot be blocked. Seems to work out for us.
Interesting.
So yeah, I'm sure. Balance is a thing.
Obviously, we're not surprised. I think both of us felt like, and I don't mind it, and that's one of the reasons why I like him. That Prince John, just because he doesn't need specific cards, can feel a little easy to go with.
Yeah.
Ursula, I guess because she does have the lock space.
Yeah, well, another Adam Marlin said he finds Ursula to be the hardest to play as. Took him around 6 games as her to finally win. And then Alfonso ST said, same with me, then I got the hang of it. You literally just have to discard like crazy until you find the win condition cards. So again, what we're learning is get rid of your cards. And that's the best strat. And now, of course, we have a ton of people chimed in with who they want to see in the game. And most of them stuck to Disney proper, but there's some weird ones in there that I like.
All right.
So Adam Marlin said Judge Frollo from Hunchback.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot he was a judge. Frollo, I forgot how you say his name. And Gaston, I think Gaston feels like the last big one that people are waiting for. I think.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be the next face. He's going to be the face of one of the expansions.
Hoser40K said Madame Medusa from The Rescuers, and he'll echo you, Will, by saying Fantasia. Yeah, Rescuers, that's one for sure. Gwendolyn Neuhauser said, I would like to see Gaston, and Mad Madam Mim from Sword in the Stone. I haven't watched that one since I was like 7, but I used to have that. And perhaps also Fagin from Oliver and Company.
Is Black Cauldron the movie that is like the dark Disney movie that they like to pretend is not theirs?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. And it also was, I get that one confused with, then there's also The Thief and the Cobbler, which was not Disney, but that one had all these issues. And I feel like maybe Black Cauldron also had like development production issues, but I can't keep it straight. But yeah, I'm sure that would be one that some people would like. The Ernie Fours said, by the way, am I supposed to say the Ernie 4 SS? I don't know. I've been reading this name a long time. Let me know. Said, I know they will never do it because of likeness, but Master Control Program. I'm pretty sure he's referring to Tron.
Tron? Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I mean, Tron made it to Kingdom Hearts.
That is true. Tron was in Kingdom Hearts. So I said, and then they would open the door to live action properties. Then looking at Kingdom Hearts, Pirates of the Caribbean. There's stuff you could do.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it's some of those like Hannah Montana or something like that.
Corey in the house. Refresh Damon said, I'd take King Louie, Shere Khan, and Ka in one box and call it the Jungle Box.
Oh,
I feel like they'll probably do Shere Khan as just one and include those with him, but that would be cool. Also would like to see the Headless Horseman, the Big Bad Wolf, Tamatoa from Moana.
Is that the island?
I assume that's the volcanic. Yeah,
I was thinking about that because that one's it's an interesting question on the term villain.
Yeah,
you know,
but I think it would work. And Yokai from Big Hero 6.
I think Yokai. I mean, not Yokai. Big Hero 6. That one's an interesting because technically it's Marvel,
right? Yeah, he's pointed that out as well.
I don't think it's not in the Marvel verse, which is also weird because I feel like both DC and Marvel, I know they own many things outside the properties, and as of the last, I think decade or so, they've been actually they are in the Marvel universe or DC verse. I know Static Shock wasn't initially in the DC verse. I know. I forget her name. She used to have her own little comic that wasn't superhero related, but I think she's Hellcat now.
Oh,
in Marvel.
Yes, you're referring to. She is Hellcat. God, her name is something really
Penny.
Dumb. It's like Silly Boots or something. It's like Penny Boots. Boots is in the name.
I'm surprised they haven't done that with Big Hero 6. It just seems like such an obvious look who's joining the champions.
Yeah, I used to have a poster of it was Marvel's 70th anniversary.
Yeah, I remember. And I remember always seeing that on there.
It had a bunch of famous covers, and one of them was her, and it was always just who is this weird lady on she's tripping on roller skates next to Spider-Man. It's anyway. There's more from Refresh Damon. He's got great suggestions I like. He said, for a real deep cut, the Phantom Blot. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't research this. I don't know if there's another origin of this, but I'm pretty sure Phantom Blot is the villain in the Epic Mickey video game.
I was going to guess because I'm that one had painting in it. So.
Yeah, I don't know because they took a lot of stuff from some of the older cartoons, so that might have originated somewhere
wasn't
else.
That when they finally brought Oswald back?
Yeah, so that would be great. And hey, Oswald could be a villain too, even though he's...
Was he?
Well,
he's already in the game.
In that... Oh, he's in some of Pete's cards.
Yeah.
But in Epic Mickey, he is sort of the anti-hero.
You know what they should do? They need to release another Pete. But it's the Pete from Goof Troop in the Goofy movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Modern Pete.
Or I guess you could do the fraternity from the college one.
We don't.
I think they're relatively villains.
We don't talk about that one. He said, goes on, not likely to happen, but might be fun. Judge Doom from Roger Rabbit. Love it. Love it. And villains, I do not want to see the hunter from Bambi. Probably not. Joxer 90...
I'm just now imagining his cards.
It's dark.
Headshot, body shot.
Joxer 96 had more suggestions. I'm just going to keep reading because I think they're just so much fun. The Beagle Boys. Those are like old school... maybe they were in Goof Troop or they were in like old cartoons. I forget what they're from. Chip and Dale or something. Brom Bones, Stromboli, Madam Mim. Some of these I don't know. And this is my favorite. Well, not from any Disney movie. The Hatbox Ghost from the Haunted Mansion ride.
I think that counts.
Yeah, that's... I mean, yes. I mean, if we're going there...
Honestly, I think that
there's some good Disney Parks villains.
I think what would be an interesting idea, maybe let's go with the parks. Make a big box of park villains that's sold exclusively at the parks, maybe.
Yeah, that would be cool.
You know, and let's say, like we said, a lot of deep cut ones. What if they chose 6 of them, made like the deep cut box, and it's exclusively sold online or something? You know, like they don't have to print a bunch that go to Target. They can put it online, see how well it sells. And I'm sure a lot of collectors out there, because Disney has plenty of collectors under the who collect different things, would love it. It just seems they have a lot of things to go with. Get some of those weird ones. Like, I know at first you were angry, like they're spreading out the good ones.
Right.
But I'm
not really
almost
angry. I just think it's
angry.
Funny.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I honestly think sometimes it's those not obvious ones are almost the better, more interesting villains to get.
Yeah. Rounding us out with a few more, Robin Rising did bring up Davy Jones and the Horned King from Black Cauldron, as well as Oogie Boogie, who I mentioned, I think, in the video. And he said, I'd say getting the 3, he or she, I should say, I don't know, said, I'd say getting the 3 villainous expansions is actually better than the base game. They stand alone, they're more interesting to play, and if you get rid of the insert, they fit one box. And I'm inclined to agree from what I've experienced of the sets. I would say that might be a good bet, is to just get 3 expansions.
I mean, they play by themselves, so why not?
Yeah. So, that's Villainous.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll wrap up with a handful of other, the miscellany section. And we've got some fun things going on in here too. Also, Nishant in the chat said, no, God, no, in response, I think, to Bambi's Hunter.
Oh, I thought he was saying it to the idea of like having one sold only at the parks or one only online.
I think it came in earlier than that. The last week, or maybe it was the week before, I can't keep track anymore, I played Marvel Champions solo on a stream. And Daniel Larimore pointed out, around the 28-minute mark, you played Shield Toss. Sorry, this is getting a little nitty-gritty, but it's leading to something I hope is interesting, which is an attack. Because you were stunned, that would have stopped that attack. Also, you still had the Goblin Thrall engaged with you with Guard, meaning you couldn't attack Green Goblin, but that was fixed because I took it out with Hawkeye. At least that's what I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but thanks for the playthrough. So I looked this up, and this was a thing that I realized I was doing wrong, which is that there are certain cards in Marvel Champions that are labeled as attacks that I was treating as different from your hero's standard attack. And in some ways, the thing that frustrates me, and when I looked it up, it kind of made me mad, as in general at Fantasy Flight games with all their keywords, is that it actually does work differently in that if you use a hero's default attack, you exhaust the card, and if they're stunned, you would have to remove the stun card first, and if there's a guard enemy, you'd have to attack the guard enemy first. All of that is true for an attack card that you play, except you also don't exhaust your hero for an attack card. So you could play multiple attack cards. And it's those little things that to me are just, I feel, it should be like all or nothing. Either it's the same or it can bypass those things. And I just hate all these nitty-gritty. There's 100, and I know you're going to say, oh, you haven't played Magic. That's what Magic is. And I know, but I hate it.
I'm not going to say that, but I was going to say that's living card game. So you're close.
Well, it's Fantasy Flight, even when it's not a living card game. But
I mean,
but I mean, it was an interesting
I know,
thing.
I see where you're coming from too, and it's sort of like one of those things. So like, you wish like either acts completely like that, like it replaces the attack. So instead of punching, you're throwing the shield. So it does all the same stuff. It just maybe does more damage or something.
Yeah.
Or it's like it's not technically an attack, because I feel like there's some other games I've seen that come across like, oh, it's not technically, so it works.
Right.
I can't think of them.
It's one of those things that it is just, especially with a game like, again, an LCG. It's like, unless you, I mean, I feel like I've played it a fair amount, but certainly not as much as I know a lot of other people have who are really, really into it and play it like every day. And yeah, just the more you play it, all these things start to click and make sense. But for
in particular, like any of these games, it's sort of like, you know how your deck's supposed to play, so you can be more. Right. That's like part of the problems with these kind of games. When you have new people sit down, they may not know, like, how does Thor work? Like, should this be a card I use, or is it worth me spending? Do I have 3 copies in there? I know the Game of Thrones one, for example. I was playing a deck my brother had made, and I remember thinking, like, afterwards saying, like, these cards are really expensive and I never wanted to play them. He's like, oh, you're not supposed to play them because they had, like, you can pay more to get a special ability. It's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You're paying for the cheap cost. Like, oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
So, like, it's like knowing how the cards are supposed to be played.
So please accept my formal apology for that misplay in that Marvel Champions video. I did most of the other rules right. I'm trying to get better. Also, I want to just continue quickly with Marvel Champions. This is a comment from the Patreon page. If you're a Patreon subscriber, we talked about, I was lamenting and kvelling that's whatever the Yiddish term is, kvetching and kvelling over the possible storage options for Marvel Champions. Hoser40K said, for Marvel Champions, I use the Ultra Pro deck box Eclipse plus 100 from Miniature Market. They come in colors matching each aspect and use gray for neutral cards. They come with a single divider that I use to separate a ready-to-go aspect deck in front, and the rest of the cards in the back for those who want to tweak their decks. I use the Marvel Champions box to store tokens, heroes, and villains. So it's interesting to hear people's different suggestions. So yeah, if you have a take on how you organize your Marvel Champions sets, because for this one in particular, I feel like from what I've seen online, there's like 2 or 3 major ways that people do it, but there's not a consistent method that everyone uses.
Right. I mean, that's the problem when there isn't like, this is the official box for whatever. I mean, you recently, was it also in the podcast? I don't remember. Brought up how Upper Deck had a poll for Legendary about the storage solution for that.
No, we haven't talked about that yet anywhere.
Okay. So, and we had a debate on like how we would want that, and how like each of us even view what we think would be best for Legendary a little differently. By the way, there is Nishan has a question. I can't read the full thing, unfortunately. My camera sort of blocks part of the screen, so I can't read the full.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead. If you get
I was going to ask you to read it. Because I'm going to say, like, I can't read it all, so I was hoping you could.
I got it. He asks, which games are you guys playing over the weekend? Good question.
So,
not sure.
We're trying to get a group of people for some games, and we'll see how that goes.
Usually, some of the games we'll probably be trying to play are things that we'll be reviewing in the next few weeks. So things like Disney Jungle Cruise.
That is true. We're also looking at the Mind. Not the Mind. I'm mixing up. It's still Inner Compass. Which has to do with your feelings inside your mind.
Inner Compass and Santa Monica from AEG.
There are a couple other things I don't really want to mention now, which we'll see what happens.
Well, I will mention one, which is we've been trying to remotely continue our campaign of Gloomhaven.
Yeah, there's that. Yes,
Base of Gloomhaven, and maybe I'll talk about another one later on in this episode too. How's that for a tease? But yes, hopefully we'll get to some of those because
Now, I guess what might be also interesting is because we're not also only doing board games. I'm probably going to be playing a bit of Animal Crossing as usual in Destiny. Jonathan, do you have anything on the video game docket for you?
Not exactly this weekend. I did just purchase some of the old Resident Evil games. They are on sale on the Switch. I don't know that I'm going to be playing them anytime soon, but they were on sale, so I bought them. But we're a week out from Last of Us Part 2, so that's really what I'm waiting for. Maybe I'll play more Clubhouse games.
There's that. I really still want you to stream the because you have 7. I think it's 7 in VR.
Maybe I'll go through the series. I'll stream. I'll do a Resident Evil thon.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? If people like, we'll put that on the channel.
Let us know if you want to see it.
Maybe not stream. Maybe you'll just record and then just do highlights or something. Because a lot of times with video games, it's just like you just doing a little bit of a grinding. So but that could be fun.
Dinroll in the chat said Legendary Storage is atrocious. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I think when something gets that big, yeah,
it's or I would almost say just non-existent. It's not even. It doesn't. There is none.
I think we're getting improvement for Resident Evil.
Oh, all right. Well, let us know. Keep that coming.
All right, John. No, I want to see.
Hey,
it now,
is
Jonathan.
the thing is there are Resident Evil board games now, so it does tie in.
If you do watch our Instagram, actually, you would have seen that Jonathan, did a bit of an unboxing to a game, I would say adjacent to Resident Evil.
In some ways, Evil Dead 2 came in. That is one, unfortunately, I don't know when we're going to be able to play it because it definitely requires being in person, I think, with a bigger group, at least like 4 or 5.
I mean, how many games have we opened up and like with each other be like, all right, if I use a second camera here and
right.
do this.
That one's got hidden roles in it, so.
Yeah, we're trying very hard to play more things over camera. It's a challenge, to say the least. It's very fun, too, when like you're the one holding the board and you're like, I want to play my 4th card. Not that one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And that one.
Ajan also said, I'm guessing you both don't have the Resident Evil board game. No, it is one that I really was on the fence. Like, I wanted to get Resident Evil 2, but I had heard so many mixed things, and it's like a big, expensive minis game, and I just didn't want to make that leap. But maybe it's at some point if Steamforge is that what they're called? I forget their name. Yeah, Steamforge.
No.
If they're watching, if you want to send us a copy, go ahead.
If anyone's watching from company development and want us to review something,
but we haven't tried
please.
It.
We have a contact form.
Now, going back to Clubhouse games that I might be playing, we also streamed some of that. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Ajan, this is a coincidence. I don't plan these things. Commented on that stream and said, "Wished I was able to see Jahres during the live stream. He didn't catch it live. I could have helped with mahjong." Yeah, we went into mahjong and failed spectacularly because we didn't know how to play.
That's what happens when we go and play. I am going to learn to play that one. That one was like, I'm going to go in and do it.
Yeah, so
because I feel like that would be interesting because it's any of the ones that have lasted for so long. You're almost curious of like, I gotta know, right?
Right. Yeah. Totally. One of those for me was backgammon, and Kevy B said, "How dare you badmouth backgammon?" It's actually a good game, but it's one you need to play a lot to understand. For a game based solely on dice rolling, it is quite tactical. I will say this, I do not doubt that game is tactical. I do think I see that there is strategy involved when you play it enough. And certainly I know there's a couple alternate rules people like to play with that come into play too. However, I still think it is very boring and not that good.
Does I guess, yeah, you can do different rule sets in this game.
For some of them.
For some of them.
It is not as extensive as I wish it were.
It only reminds me because I know there's a Monopoly game that has house rules in it, but you can only turn on one. From what I've seen, you can't actually turn on multiple. So, like, if you want free parking, you can't also have the auctioning.
Yeah, backgammon, it doesn't include the doubling cube, which is a thing I know people use. Don't ask me what it is.
I think it's something Thanos has.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Okay, some more random things. A lot of Kickstarter stuff, of course, as always. One of them that you talked about was Sheol.
Right.
Marcel the Archibald and among a lot of other people said Sheol looks really interesting stylistically and mechanically. It'll be interesting to see if it funds because they're aiming for a realistic, aka high funding goal. But I'm on board because this game needs to be made. A lot of people in the comments really like the look of it. And I know towards the end, weren't sure if it was going to get funded, but it did hit its goal. So,
cool. I cannot think of a game off the top of my head right now. Actually, no, I can't think of one where like you'd feel bad if it got funded or not. You want it to be funded. I mean,
anything Exploding Kittens game?
No, the thing I was thinking of was like the guy who like was using
a copyright license illegal
yeah.
game.
Like usually those, because it's not only stealing the copyright, it's like always in like it looks like the cheapest, poorest way.
We talked a little bit. We just mentioned the Castle Panic Deluxe Kickstarter, and Krista Vries pointed out that it was canceled because apparently,
of course it was.
Yeah, apparently everybody. What they planned to do was launch this deluxe version, and then later on they were going to have another Kickstarter for deluxe versions of the expansions. And everybody said, we want the expansions now. So they said, okay, we're going to take it down and we will come back and the next campaign will have everything together.
I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, so I wonder if they'll have, I don't know if they said if they'll have like a big box for it or something, but...
Oh, not even big box reasons. One of the things that's going to happen then, let's say I did decide I wanted everything. By making one Kickstarter, I only have to pay shipping once. Like,
yeah, right, for sure. If you're, and I think probably if you're the kind of person who's like, I want the deluxe version, you're probably ready and willing to go all in, especially on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
and
sense.
That's cheaper for them too. So I think it's the best move.
You had a great idea in relation to the Tiny Epic games about...
I did?
Yeah, about...
you don't hear that very often.
About jumping, if you could like play the pieces between different games.
Oh yeah, I like make a giant...
Nick Helfrich said, Will's idea for Tiny Epic games would be like the Lego movie version of Tiny Epic games, with different realms and you have to beat each one. Could be fun if you carry your heroes through each game. Yeah, hey, the PS5 now, the Ratchet and Clank, that are all about different realms. Did you see that?
I have not watched anything about the PS5, to be honest.
Well, you'll have to stay tuned to our next Patreon podcast if you want to hear us talk about that, probably.
Yeah, for someone who really enjoys the PlayStation systems, and that's what I grew up with, I was just like, I'll hear about it later.
We'll get to it. The Ernie Force again said, I noticed this month there have been a ton of pirate Kickstarter board games. Which one do you think will be the best one? Tiny Epic Pirates looks great, but the presentation of Sea of Legends looks amazing. What's your go-to pirate board game?
That's out right now?
Yeah.
Because I will say you have one, Jonathan. So we haven't played yet, but I'm excited to play.
Oh. Are you referring to this?
Well, I'm not seeing yes. Good. I was like, I really hope I don't say yes. And you're like holding up Marvel Champions just to test me.
This was my big reveal. Yes, this just came in, and I'm very excited to play it, especially because they developed an app specifically to enable you to play this with other people remotely easily. So we're ready to go with this. Like, we can get a group and play this game.
Well, add that to the list of things we might be trying this weekend.
So, yeah, that's on the list. Very excited about that. Ones that leapt to my head, to be honest, I don't feel like there's a ton of pirate games we play, but ones that I thought of were Tortuga 1886, or whatever the subtitle is, which is a social deduction game that comes in a book from Facade Games. And another big one, of course, is Treasure Island.
I mean, I really love Treasure Island. I know I don't think, I forget the name of the main pirate. It hasn't won yet, but I think it's just such a fun game to do all the drawings. And I know some people in our group aren't as excited about it. Technically, I couldn't remember what your opinion was.
I need to give it more chances, but I wasn't. I had some.
I understand it. Like, to me, I think almost the fun isn't like the competitiveness. It's just I think it's fun to draw and do things.
In concept,
so I almost like
the
journey. I enjoy it. Smash Up, technically.
There's pirates in Smash Up.
There are pirates in Smash Up, and I do enjoy playing the pirates. I wasn't as crazy about their Titan that they used to update them. And I think they need, like, they're the ones who, like, they got in the pack of people who need updates, like the Ghosts. And I feel the reason they need to be updated, not because pirates in a vacuum I thought were weak, it's because a lot of their stuff is drawing creatures with 2 power and less, and everything else is power creeped away from 2. So it's... I know I actually backed a pirate game. It was one of the first Kickstarter games I backed, and I only just got it recently, and I haven't played it because it was one of those Kickstarters that, like, sort of didn't really fulfill when it should have.
Yeah, that happens from time to time.
I feel like there's something else that I can't remember.
Do you remember the name of that one off the top of your head, or no?
No, I do not. But I'm trying to think of other ones we played. Do we just not have played?
I feel like there aren't that many, to be honest with you. I don't think.
But I remember getting that Kickstarter, being like, I feel like I've fulfilled my pirate niche now. So that's what's weird.
People in the chat, shout out some pirate games for us that maybe we're forgetting and missing. I see that Nishant said he was really rooting for Sheol. Designer put his heart and soul into it. So we're happy that got funded.
Literally, each game comes with a part of his soul.
And also said that the next topic for Favorite Game Friday on Dice Tower is pirate games. So if you want more suggestions for people who've played more pirate games than we have, stay tuned for that. But yeah, I think maybe there's some scenarios of Robinson Crusoe pirates in them.
I might be thinking that.
Or Friday is also a Robinson Crusoe game. Pretty sure there's pirates in that. We've been doing some RPG streams. We've been taking it easy on the streaming, but we do plan on doing more RPGs plays in the future. And one of the ones we talked about doing at some point is Fate. And Falcon Ash K, also on the Patreon, people. Get on that Patreon. It's good. Said Fate RPG is one he really wants us to play. Said, are you going to run accelerated or core? So there's a streamlined version, and then there's like the full deal, full rulebook version of it. And I know there's a lot of other variants of Fate, and I would like to hear people's opinions who are watching this. If you have a suggestion for where is a good place to start with the Fate rule set.
We'll be going into Fate new, so.
Yeah, so let us know, because I don't know which one, and I'd like to hear people's opinions. We jokingly came up with the idea of a space-themed Gloomhaven, a new sci-fi version of Gloomhaven in one of our videos. And
I don't remember that, but that sounds like something we do.
We called it Space Haven. But Leroy Porkins has a list of suggestions for titles. Galaxies of Gloom, Gloomy Stars, or Gloom Nebula. And Marcel the Archibald said, there is a Gloomhaven in space. It's called Starlight, which was a Kickstarter sci-fi game, which is also a campaign-heavy narrative sci-fi game. So
another suggestion, Gloom Station.
Oh, from you. A good one. That's a good one. Gloom Station. I like it. And finally, there's a little correction I got to make. We talked about the fact that they were donating portions of the profits from Wingspan games towards the NAACP and another organization in support of Black Lives Matter recently. I was wrong about that. Mohammed Al-Haroun, in fact, points out that it wasn't Elizabeth Hargrave putting profits forward from the game. It was the illustrator, Natalia Rojas, giving away the profit from the prints of the artwork. So good to note. Good to know. I was a little off, but either way, it's a great gesture, and nice that they're doing something with Wingspan, which is, as we said, a very popular game. We got Spock Haven from the chat also, from Nishant. Now, that's where we're going to wrap things up for this week. I just want to say we have been, if you've been watching our channel, doing some videos about Black Lives Matter and other dealing with race and all these issues that have been cropping up lately. And I know there have been some people who aren't a fan of us doing these videos, but there have been a lot of people who have been supportive of it and appreciative of it. So grateful for everyone who is into that kind of stuff and is willing to listen to us and also hopefully listen to other people during times like this.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think in the last one, we should not be the last stop.
Right. Yeah, definitely watch our videos on it. I hope you do, because I think there's some good stuff in there. But in those videos, we'll point you to other places. But just had to acknowledge that. And we don't plan on. I can't say it's going to be like a regular feature of our channel in any capacity, but we're certainly not going to not talk about those things if we think they're important and if they come up as news stories. So
yeah, I mean, we're here to report on the news, but we also don't think we're also the most qualified people at times to talk about some of these things. So we'll talk about when we think it's appropriate.
We do our best. All right, And on that somber note, thanks everybody. As always, there were a ton of great comments. You can leave comments right on this video still to reply to this. If you were in the chat, we thank you to everybody who was hanging out. We got Nishant. Dinral said, have a good day. Nishant also said it was great of us to do a one-day pause and bring attention to Black Lives Matter. Believe me, it's the very least we could have done. But happy to do it. Glad people are doing that. Everybody who was out there taking part, thank you so much. And if you liked listening to us and you want to listen to more of us, we have a Patreon page, as we said, patreon.com/rollforcrit, where you can get your comments in.
And we have our podcast there where we usually talk about the other nerdy stuff we do. There's a lot more video game talk there and movies and TV shows. And don't forget, whether you back or not, and of course, thank you so much if you are supporting us during these times on our Patreon, to let us know and help me convince Jonathan put his Resident Evil plays on here. We want to watch him play.
That's right. Hey, for every new dollar on the Patreon is another convincing me. Also, if you like chatting with us, there's a Discord for just $1 a month. We're always in there chatting. You can ask us a question anytime you want for $1 a month. I think it's worth it. Thanks so much. It's been awesome. And in fact, on our way out, we'll say have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you for posting at us. We'll say goodbye to our faces. And I just want to get to, didn't I put it in? Oh, I know, I forgot to do it. I forgot to put up I was going to convert an image of our patrons, but there are a lot of them, including Falcon Ash K and Hoser 40K, whose names you heard in this video, and Kevy B. So if you want to be included, there are the credits of every future video. You can check that out. Otherwise, that's been it. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you. That's our intro again. I mean, it's our outro now.